up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for April 20th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Saturday edition of the podcast, Sixers Playoff Edition, coming at you from the Eagle Rock Resort up in Hazleton. Got 18 in yesterday and probably had the most ridiculous round of my life. 2 10s, 2 8s, 2 birds, and a par. Just absolutely ridiculous. But back out to play 27 today. I don't know which side of my game is going to show up, whether it's going to be the 2 birds or the 2 10s. Likely the 2 10s, but it's all good. All right, as always, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, does the Philly media talk too much about the Eagles, especially in the offseason? 75% of you said yes, they do, and I couldn't agree more. And I still feel like they're making up stories. Like this A.J. Brown thing is absolutely ridiculous, and it's gaining traction, and it's all speculation because of a Twitter profile picture. Like, come on. Like, apparently, according to Albert Breer, teams have been inquiring about trading for A.J., and the Eagles are shutting them down. But, like, it's going to take something ridiculous for them to even entertain that trade, as I mentioned yesterday. But too much Eagles talk, especially in the offseason when you have Sixers playoffs and the Phillies are off to a decent start now and playing better. So, I don't know. As always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. There will be another question later in the show. Be sure to hit me up on social media, TikTok and Twitter, Jimbo_Mott, Instagram @PhillyJimbo. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell anybody. Just let's grow this thing. Already doing some planning for the summer, so we got some good things lined up. So be sure to just, as a good friend of mine said, don't be a bum, hit the thumb. All right, if you are interested in tickets to the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony in November, all the information is down in the description. It's going to be a big class. Tickets are just selling. I just got an email yesterday from the team, and they're saying, like, keep up whatever we're doing because people are buying tickets. And just the top 3, Jameer Nelson, Chase Utley, and Ryan Howard right there. Then you throw Angelo Cataldi. It's going to be insane. So all the information you need is down there. If you're interested in being a sponsor or you have a business that you want to donate something to, like a restaurant or any type of service, hit me up with that. We're looking for whatever for auction sponsors. It does not have to be sports related. So you can, if you have some type of, like, I'm thinking a craft store or like a massage parlor or something, and you want to donate, feel free to do that. But all the information you need is in the description. All right, it is Sixers game day. And I think the most Captain Obvious headline I saw yesterday is that Toby is likely gone after this year. Excuse me. This fresh mountain air has got my allergies messed up. But, yeah, no shit, Tobias is gone after this year. Like, I think everybody knows that. But he's been linked to Detroit, which I believe he played in Detroit for a little bit before he came to the Sixers. But, hey, let's send him out, go out on top as a champion. Crazier things have happened. But like I said, tonight is game 1 of the Sixers-Knicks series. They're home next week, but let's steal game 1 up in New York. The Knicks won the season series 3-1. All time in the playoffs, though, these teams have played a lot. Not recently, but 9 times dating back to when they were in Syracuse. One year was like a round-robin tournament. Sixers hold the edge 21-12. In the 33 games and have won 5 of the 3 series and also won that round-robin tournament back in the 50s. But here's the key stat that I liked. Every time the Sixers beat the Knicks in a playoff series, minimally they came to the Eastern Conference Final. And I think that's ultimately where we are right now. This is Eastern Conference Finals or bust. And I think it would be good for Joe's legacy. good to get over the hump. But unfortunately, the last time they played was back in 1989. That was Charles Barkley's Sixers, and the Knicks swept them out of the playoffs. But I don't think either one of these teams is pulling off a sweep. As I mentioned, there's like 4 games separating the 8 seed and the 2 seed. So these teams are evenly matched. I think it's going to come down to Joel's conditioning and if his knee is a little gimpy. I don't think it is. I really think he tired because they were pushing him around. They were super aggressive, and that's just kind of the way Miami played. The Knicks are a physical team too, but they play man, so it won't necessarily be fighting through screens and things like that. Obviously, Joe is always a huge question whenever he plays. Like, which Joe are we going to get? Hopefully, it's the Joe we had at the end of that game that figured it out and said, you know what? My shots aren't there. Let me get my teammates involved, and then it's going to start opening things up. And I think that goes back to coaching. I feel if we had Doc Rivers again, I would not feel confident going into this series. But Nick Nurse is a different type of dude. He has a championship pedigree and has been successful. So I think him putting those players in the right position is going to be key, especially when it comes to playing defense on Jalen Brunson. Now, I'm not as high on Jalen Brunson as a lot of people are. And part of that is I don't think don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but I don't think he's like the MVP as some people are talking about. Topher Pete, I'm looking at you. But I think they got to stop him. They got to slow him down. And that's going to come down to our role players, whether it's Batum coming in again, like whoever it is, we need somebody to make sure he's in check. And I mean, he's going to get his, which is fine. But those players need to step up the same way they did. Kelly Oubre, Nick Batum, like those guys, and even if it's somebody different, I think it's going to be key. And then Tyrese Maxey is key. He needs to play like how he did in the fourth quarter in Miami, not the lost. Looked like he was starstruck that first half of that game. So hopefully he comes in ready to go. Because there is no James Harden now. This is Tyrese and Joe's team. So I think that those are the keys for me. And the last thing is Tom Thibodeau does not necessarily have a ton of great success in the playoffs. His teams play very aggressive in the regular season and physical, but playoff NBA basketball is a different beast than what the regular season is. So the fact that his teams sort of don't up and ramp up their aggression is something to keep an eye on in this series, especially. I fully expect this series to go deep. So as this series progresses, that's something to keep an eye on. Now, obviously, I'm going to give you my pick, and I really sat down, thought long and hard about this, and kind of crunched some things, looked at matchups and this and that. And yes, it's probably slightly a homer pick, but I just think the way I saw the Sixers play that second half against the Heat the other night, this is a different team than we're used to seeing in the playoffs. It's a new era. This is not the same old Doc Rivers. I think they finally get over the hump this year. This is probably going to be one of their toughest series, I think, throughout the playoffs until Boston. But Sixers in 7 is my prediction. I think it's going to be fun, but we're going to be sweating it out a little bit. But I think they go up to New York and beat them in Game 7. You're going to see Tyrese Maxey really emerge and break out this series. Because everybody's talking about Brunson, I think you're going to see Tyrese Maxey kind of step up and really start a legacy here. So Sixers in 7. But tell me what you think. That is today's question of the day. What is your prediction for the Sixers-Knicks series? 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let me know on social media. How we feeling? I'm telling you, Sixers in 7 wouldn't surprise me if they win it in 6. I just like this matchup, and I think we're going to see a whole different playoff Sixers than what we're used to. All right, good win for the Phils, 7-0 over the White Sox. That's what they should have done against them. Turnbull was amazing, 6 Ks and 6 in the third. And now the Phillies have it seemed from what I was reading in the paper today, it's not an issue. But the Phillies are going to have a question here or an issue once Tawan Walker comes back because of how good Turnbull has been pitching. I know Rob Thompson's like, well, he's coming off the surgeries and he didn't pitch a lot, so we'll see what happens and really just kind of play with his role. But I don't know, man. I don't know if we can trust Tawan Walker. And the way this bullpen or this starting pitching has been, like I read today the stat, they have a lower ERA through 4 times through the rotation than the Phillies did in 2011 when they had Hamels, Lee, Oswald, and Holiday. So your rotation is solid, and I hate to mess something up right now that's working. Maybe you can have Walker be that guy coming out of the bullpen. But it's a tough decision. I think it's also a good problem to have if you have 6 quality starting pitchers, especially in this day and age, giving guys days off and load management and all things like that. But again, good problem to have. That is now 4 in a row for the Phils. There's the winning streak we've been dying for. And let's just get a sweep. Like, why not sweep the Rockies and the White Sox the way you're supposed to? Good to see Bomer with 2 home runs yesterday. If you remember back from the Phillies preview, that was one of my bold predictions. I said he was going to hit 30. He's got some work to do now after his start, but 2 home runs will go a long way to that. But the big thing with Alec Bohm was the Believe shirt that he wore for batting practice. And where do you get that? PhillyGoat.com. They have you covered with all of your Philly sports-based apparel. Check out their Philly Connect jerseys, their whole collection. And I'm disappointed. Can't wait. Hopefully I go home and it's waiting for me. But go to PhillyGoat.com. Check out their selection. That's PhillyGoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery at checkout for 10% off of your order. You won't be disappointed. All right. Today, we are going to go back to the year 2000. And on April 20th, 2000, the Sixers played Game 1 of the first round of the playoffs against the New Orleans Hornets. They won that game 98-90 at the FU Center. And yes, it was the FU Center then. Allen Iverson shot 21 for 32, including 3 for 5 from three-point range, 10 of 11 from the free throw line to set his career playoff high with 55 points. I have to be honest, when I was doing the research for this, I would have thought his career high came in the 2000, like the 2001 run they did. But no, it was on this day in 2003. I'm sorry, this was 2003. But it happened then. He also added 8 assists that night. His previous high, which is what I thought was his career high, was in that 2001 run against the Raptors. That 2003 Sixers team was the 4th seed in the East. They won the playoff round against the Hornets before losing to the Pistons in 6. AI played all 82 games that season for the first time in his career. He would win a scoring title in the following, or 2004, 2005. But for all intents and purposes, this was sort of the beginning of the end of the Allen Iverson era with the Sixers, between the coaching carousel and not being able to get somebody in. This was sort of the end. But this was the high point of his playoff career, again, which I was not aware of. On this day in 2003, Allen Iverson scored 55 at the FU Center, leading the Sixers to a 98-90 win over the Hornets in Game 1 of their first round playoff series, a series that they would win in 6 games. Now, for today's top 20 memory for the 20th anniversary of Citizens Bank Park, one of the greatest moments of the entire 2008 season. I think this moment really summed it up for all of Philly fans. But this was the first championship parade since 1983 for the Sixers, and it was absolute insanity. And this happened on Halloween back in 2008. We were camped out at Broad and Bigler, like near the end. They kept telling everybody to go and do public transportation. The trains were full, buses were full. The weather was beautiful too. It was a Friday, but the parade ended in Citizens Bank Park. So the players gave their speeches, and one of the top 3 moments has to be at Citizens Bank Park is when Chase Utley got up. He was a fan favorite, a man of few words. He gets up to the podium, and simply says, "World champions. World fucking champions." Crowd exploded and basically just set the tone for that. It basically said what everybody was feeling that day. I know a lot of people gave him some grief for it, but I mean, I think he was saying what we were all thinking. And I'd like to think Chase Utley crawled so Jason Kelce could run. But Utley only hit 167 in that World Series, but had 2 homers, 4 RBIs, and 4 walks. But more importantly, in that World Series, had one of the most clutch and heads-up defensive plays ever with that fake run or fake throw to stop the run from coming home. And people say it's too much, but no. Like that speech was perfect, and it summed up what we were all thinking. So today's Citizens Bank Park top 20 memory for the 20th anniversary is the championship parade that ended with Chase Utley setting the crowd into a frenzy by saying "World fucking champions," and also setting off a line of bootleg t-shirts in the parking lots. Finally today, our Philly sports team with unfinished business, the 1976-77 Sixers, left a lot of meat on this bone. This was the first year they had Dr. J and George McGinnis over from the ABA. Added them to a team with Doug Collins, Darryl Dawkins, World B. Free, Henry Bibby, and my favorite, the Mayor Steve Mix. They went 50-32, winning the Atlantic Division and had the 1 seed in the East. Dr. J was the All-Star Game MVP. Him and McGinnis were all NBA second team. They rolled through the playoffs. They beat Boston in 7, the Rockets in 6, and then quickly got up 2-0 on the Blazers in the finals. Things were looking good. And then the Blazers woke up, winning 4 straight and ending the Sixers' hopes of a championship. And the key part of this series, the turning point, there was a fight in Game 2. Darryl Dawkins and Bob Gross got into a fight. It was a physical series. And again, it was a different NBA back then. But Maurice Lucas slapped Dawkins in the head, but from behind during the whole melee, whenever the benches cleared and everything. Doug Collins ended up needing stitches. But when Maurice Lucas slapped Darryl Dawkins, that completely changed the tide of that whole series and ultimately led to the Sixers not winning. And the Sixers would get close a few more times over the next 5 years or so until Moses Malone came. But this was kind of the start. Like, it could have lumped that whole era into one. But I think each team individually had their own warts and quirks and ticks. But the 1976-77 Sixers were our Philly sports team with unfinished business who left a little bit of meat on the bone, especially after blowing a 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals. But that fight in Game 2 really changed the tide of that. Our top 20 memory for the 20th anniversary of Citizens Bank Park is Chase Utley's World Series speech. World champions. World fucking champions. And the crowd just going wild. So one of my all-time favorite things. And again, people said, oh, you shouldn't have cursed, this, that, and the other. I think he really, just said what we were all thinking. On this day in 2003, Allen Iverson set a playoff career high with 55 points in a 98-90 win over the Hornets at the FU Center in Game 1 of their first-round playoff series. Be sure to let me know what your Sixers-Knicks prediction is. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Be sure to check out my boys over the Clashing Conferences podcast as well. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of trash talk today between me and Topher. Topher, we're coming for you. Let's see what you got. I'm telling you, Sixers in 7. They shut down Brunson, and Brunson's not the MVP. But be sure to check them out wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. It's going to be a tough grind for 27 holes today. Hopefully, like I said, it's more in line with those birdies instead of those 10s. And then we get ready for Sixers-Knicks tonight. I think the weather's supposed to be a little cloudy, rainy back home, but hopefully you can get out, get to your softball and baseball games, and just enjoy your day. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Saturday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.